DiscerningHearts.com presents Beginning to Pray with Dr. Anthony Lilles. Dr. Lilles is an associate professor and the academic dean of St. John's Seminary in Camarillo, California, as well as the academic advisor for the Juan Diego House of Priestly Formation for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Through the years, clergy, seminarians, religious, and lay faithful have benefited from his lectures and retreat conferences on the Carmelite Doctors of the Church and the writings of St. Elisabeth of the Trinity. He's the author of Hidden Mountain's Secret Garden, a theological contemplation of prayer, as well as numerous other books focused on the spiritual life. In this series of conversations with Dr. Lilles, we discuss the letters of St. Elisabeth of the Trinity. Beginning to Pray with Dr. Anthony Lilles. I'm your host, Chris McGregor. Anthony, we continue our exploration of the letters of St. Elisabeth of the Trinity.
Yes, we do. We're getting into a more exciting period of her life. Up until now, the letters that we've been looking at have been letters that she wrote kind of when she was passing through a difficult purification. In fact, the last letter we discussed about the Eucharist, she was just coming out of it. She had suffered pretty intensely. Now she's made her religious profession, and she's receiving a deeper kind of intimacy with Christ than she's ever known before. And it's during the same period that she composes her great prayer, "O my God, Trinity, whom I adore." And that begins the phase of her major works. So her most important works are written from now in 1903 until her death in 1906. All her major works. And then a tremendous number of letters. Almost half of the letters that she writes in her whole life are written in the next 3 years.
Wow.
So this begins a fruitful phase of her life.
Before we begin looking at the actual letter, Anthony, could we talk just a little bit about the importance of the person's expressions in letter writing? The reason I couch it that way is because it's really a practice that we don't enter into very much anymore in today's society. We're such text-oriented, really brief, short sound bites that for the saints that we've come to know, in their letters, it served two purposes, not only to communicate to the person, but it helped them to kind of break open a bit more for themselves, didn't it? Their own spiritual experiences.
Yes, in this exploration, then, you kind of get a very intimate and personal look at what's going on in Elisabeth's heart. This is particularly true when she writes to priests and very close friends. Madame Angles is one of her very close friends, family friends. And so she, in fact, Madame Angles doesn't know at this stage of the game, she's a third order Franciscan, but she's eventually going to enter religious life herself. And whenever there's somebody who is a person of prayer, who's thinking about a religious vocation or is a priest, Elisabeth just kind of like opens up the valves. You see what's flowing through her heart in a deeper and a more intense way.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is the people of that time, but also up until maybe, I'm even thinking the letters that I've seen from, say, writers like Flannery O'Connor, who would communicate with friends and family members through letters, that those become, in a way, an opportunity to journal their experiences and to be able to articulate them. And for those who are receiving them, it is a chance for them to be able to have that letter and to look at it again and again, especially if it's, from a spiritual friendship or a spiritual companionship type of thing. We've lost something in today's experience, I think, that somehow wouldn't it be beneficial for us to once again encourage and at least try in writing down things, especially of a spiritual nature?
Yes, I think that it's really good for your spiritual life to do that. The other thing Elisabeth does, though, that is important is she's kind of selective. about who she says, what she says to whom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some people she's really going to open up her heart in a really deep way, and sometimes even kind of disclose to them different things that she's suffering. And other people, it's going to be a lot more discreet. For example, she doesn't like to cause her mother worry. So in her letters to her mom, she's pretty discreet about some of the hardships that she's gone through. Whereas with this old priest, Canon Angs, who is related to Madame Angs, she's going to be a lot more free in saying what's going on. So anyway, yeah, Madame Angs is the aunt of one of her close friends. We haven't read any letters that Elisabeth wrote to her, but Marie-Louise Morel, who Elisabeth wants to get into Carmel. I don't think she succeeds, but she wants to get her into Carmel. Well, it's an interesting thing. She's writing her friend Marie-Louise, and then the mom starts writing Elisabeth, and the mom's the one who will eventually go into religious life. It's a very interesting thing. How God can use these letters, and I don't know why she opens up to Madame Angs. I'm not exactly sure, except that maybe because she was kind of a maternal figure, Elisabeth felt that she could trust her, and so that's why this particular letter is so rich.
Well, let's enter into this letter then.
November 24th, 1903. Dijon, Carmel. My beloved is all mine, and I am all his. Madame and dear sister, I was very touched by your good wishes. I, for my part, celebrated your feast day too, since Saint Elisabeth is your patron. For it does us much good to look into the soul of saints and then to follow them through faith right up to heaven. There they are all luminous with the light of God, whom they contemplate face to face for all eternity. This heaven of the saints is our homeland, the Father's house, where we are awaited, where we are loved, where one day we too will be able to fly and rest in the bosom of infinite love. When we consider the divine word that envelops us already here in our exile, and in which we can move, then things here below disappear. All of that doesn't exist. It is less than nothing. The saints, for their part, understood true knowledge so well, the knowledge that makes us leave everything, and especially ourselves, so we can fly to God and live solely with Him. Dear Madame, He is within us to sanctify us, so let us ask Him to be Himself our sanctity. When our Lord was on earth, the Gospel says, a secret power went out from Him. At His touch, the sick recovered their health, the dead were restored to life. Well, He is still living in the tabernacle in His adorable sacrament, living in our souls. He Himself said, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home in him. So since He is there, let us keep Him company as a friend does with the one he loves. The essence of our life in Carmel is this divine, holy, intimate union. It is what makes our solitude so precious, for, as our Holy Father John of the Cross, whose feast we are celebrating today, says, two hearts who love each other prefer solitude to anything else. On Saturday, the feast of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin, we had the beautiful ceremony of the renewal of our vows. Oh, dear Madam, what a beautiful day! What joy to be bound to the service of so good a Master, to tell Him that one is His until death. Sponsa Christi. I am so happy to feel that you too are given to Him. And it seems to me that, from up in heaven, our great Saint Elisabeth must bless and seal the union of our souls. Please tell your little sister Imelda of Jesus that I very happily grant her wish by remembering her each day before God. I ask her to pray for me too, especially to say thank you to him who has chosen the better part for me. I was very happy to have news of you through Mama, who was so well received, so spoiled when she was with you. I don't know how to express my gratitude to all of you for that. As for me, I will never go to your beautiful mountains again, but I will follow you there in soul and heart, asking him who is our rendezvous to draw us to those other mountains, those divine summits that are so far from earth they nearly touch heaven. I remain wholly united with you there beneath the rays of the Sun of Love. Sister M. Elisabeth of the Trinity, RCI.
Madame Angles has taken kind of a religious name for her third order Franciscan group that she's part of, and it's Saint Elisabeth, the same name that Elisabeth of the Trinity has. And so Elisabeth, notice, connects with her on that, but then she turns it into this reflection on the saints and our true homeland. Her vision of heaven here is a very beautiful vision. We tend to look at heaven as kind of like this boring, static place. Okay, after we've had fun in this life, we die and we float around on clouds. Well, that's not Elisabeth's heaven at all. For Elisabeth's heaven, it's the place where we are awaited by love. Love is awaiting us, and it's a place where we are completely and totally loved, flying into the bosom of infinite love. This is profound truth Elisabeth has touched upon. The human person is the kind of creature that is made to receive love. She is in the image and likeness of God, and God is the one who loves and who is loved. From all eternity, the Father loves his Son. The Son is the beloved of the Father, and the Son who is lavished in this love returns it completely back to the Father. This is last time Elisabeth talked about the great silence that when we go into Eucharistic adoration, when we enter into prayer, there's that holy, beautiful silence, and that silence is filled with the love of God the Father and God the Son in the power of the Holy Spirit. Elisabeth is bringing that same image that she referred to in that letter. She's bringing it to bear in this letter about heaven. At least in this paragraph, she wants us to understand the place that we are headed, the place that we are going, where the saints are, is this place where we are completely baptized in the love of God. And so if you think about this, today's people are kind of lost and sometimes wander around in meaninglessness with their lives. They want some kind of satisfaction, and they grasp for it either in pleasurable things or in relationships, or trying to get security in one way or another, or grasping for things, or sometimes drugs and pharmaceuticals. People grasp for all kinds of things. The reason why they're not satisfied is because they're created in the image and likeness of God, and created in that image and likeness of God, they are meant to be loved and to love. And Elisabeth is saying this is what is awaiting us in God.
There is, as you alluded to, such an ache in today's society, in our culture, because people, they don't have authentic relationships. Or if they have relationships, they've been experienced in such a broken nature, even to the heart of the family, because families have been broken more so than maybe what they have been in the past. That can affect our experience of understanding heaven, can it?
Yeah, we live in a very alienated world where people aren't sure whether love actually exists. They have questions about it, and so they don't. It's ironic. We live in a world where people expect things out of relationships that human relationships can't give. They expect things from mere human beings that only God can give. And then they're disappointed and they give up on love and they're alienated even more. Well, so then when we describe heaven as this place of perfect love, this kind of being immersed in the infinite love of God, if somebody has not experienced love, this idea is so foreign and so different. It doesn't always resonate with everybody. That being said, the pathway forward, even for those of us who've maybe come from broken situations and harsh life circumstances, the way forward by a simple act of faith, to believe in love anyway, that love is more powerful than the alienation that we suffer, because love is risen from the dead. Love can't be vanquished. The love of God cannot be vanquished. He's risen from the dead. Everything he did in his earthly life, Elisabeth says in this letter, when he healed people, when he raised people from the dead, he's still doing it now because he is risen from the dead. Listen to this.
November 24th, 1903. Dijon, Carmel. My beloved is all mine, and I am all his. Madame and dear sister, I was very touched by your good wishes. I, for my part, celebrated your feast day too, since Saint Elisabeth is your patron. For it does us much good to look into the soul of saints and then to follow them through faith right up to heaven. There they are all luminous with the light of God, whom they contemplate face to face for all eternity. This heaven of the saints is our homeland, the Father's house, where we are awaited, where we are loved, where one day we too will be able to fly and rest in the bosom of infinite love. When we consider the divine word that envelops us already here in our exile, and in which we can move, then things here below disappear. All of that doesn't exist. It is less than nothing. The saints, for their part, understood true knowledge so well, the knowledge that makes us leave everything, and especially ourselves, so we can fly to God and live solely with Him. Dear Madame, He is within us to sanctify us, so let us ask Him to be Himself our sanctity. When our Lord was on earth, the Gospel says, a secret power went out from Him. At His touch, the sick recovered their health, the dead were restored to life. Well, He is still living in the tabernacle, in His adorable sacrament, living in our souls. He Himself said, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home in him. So since he is there, let us keep him company as a friend does with the one he loves.
This gets to what I meant by an act of faith. For people, we live in a world where there's a lot of divorce and broken families and abuse, and it robs you of your sense of identity. It kind of distorts what you think your true needs are, and it robs you also of a sense of purpose. A lot of people suffer with that. What's the way out of it? I mean, we diagnose the disease. Where's the healing? And Elisabeth is proposing that the healing is mental prayer. That when we believe that Jesus, who walked on the earth and raised the dead and healed the sick, is walking with us right now, and that is more true than anything else that's going in our lives. His presence to me right here, right now, is more true. I can have more confidence in that than I can in the book in front of my face, the cup of coffee in my hand, that he is that real. And I ponder that, and I spend time with that. Just like you spend time with a friend, you spend time with Jesus. When you do this, he is transmitting something to you. He is sanctifying you. He is setting you apart for a singular kind of love. This is what Elisabeth wants Madame Angles to receive, and it's also something we can receive if we accept this invitation into deep prayer.
Appreciation that he is that close. I think it's easier for us, isn't it, Anthony, to have a peripheral experience of Jesus, that somehow that he's over there. If I turn my back and I don't acknowledge him, that he is not present. But to have that relationship, to have that depth of, can I say faith in this instance? I mean, to have that faith that he is with us and he doesn't leave no matter what, even in those moments where we choose to turn away or to grab onto sin.
That's right. No, he kind of perseveres with us through it all. In her vision of the Father has entrusted everything to us when he entrusted his Son. And once the Father gives a gift, he never snatches the gift back. And so even though we abuse the gift of Christ's presence in our hearts by ignoring it or living in a way that rejects it, the Father doesn't take that gift back. Christ remains present with the soul, even in the soul with deep sin. But his presence to a soul that has become hard-hearted, that doesn't believe in love, his presence is one of inviting to conversion, inviting back into the love of the Father. And so that when we respond to that invitation, when we go to confession, the work of God's love can begin in us all over again. It's this presence of Christ, though, that makes this new beginning possible.
Well, and she mentions that secret power that flows from him. You know, sometimes he's working in us and we may not feel it. There may not be warm fuzzies. We may not have that, that type of consolation that says he's there. Part of that faith is trusting that even in those moments we don't experience that, he's still working.
That's right. Our faith in his presence doesn't rely on things that we feel or don't feel, or intuitions of his presence, or whether or not we feel good before or after or during our prayer, or it doesn't rely on some like psychological state that we achieve. It's by faith and really faith alone. Sometimes you feel like you're resting in the love of the Lord, and it feels kind of warm, and you have this intuition of how loved you are, and that's a great grace. What a wonderful consolation. And for people who receive that, thank God for that. It's just tremendous. But that's not the way prayer works all the time. And for a lot of people, it's not the way it works even most of the time. A lot of times you spend time with God, and it seems as if he's not there and that nothing is happening. And the temptation is to think, well, maybe nothing's happening. Maybe God doesn't love me. Maybe I should give up prayer. And the wisdom of Carmel, the wisdom of Elisabeth of the Trinity, but also John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila, is that you don't give up on prayer. You persevere. You get a good holy book or the scriptures, and you sit down in front of the Blessed Sacrament or in the silence of your room with maybe a little lit candle, and you turn your heart to him. And when your heart starts to wander, you begin to read the book until you become aware of him again, and you rest in that awareness of that he's there, or the belief that he's there. And then when you get distracted by laundry lists and grocery lists and things like that, you go back to your book and you read it again until you're capable of making that act of faith that he is with me. He's with me right now. He's changing me. His love is alive in me. It's the most real thing in my life. I can believe in this. A soul that will do that, that will give itself over to that, the discipline of that kind of solitude and silence, will be blessed indeed. She actually goes on in this letter to quote St. John of the Cross.
The essence of our life in Carmel is this divine, holy, intimate union. It is what makes our solitude so precious, for, as our Holy Father John of the Cross, whose feast we are celebrating today, says, two hearts who love each other prefer solitude to anything else.
And when you respond to that solitude, when you say yes to the silence, a deeper love in your heart begins to grow. Key to the kind of the reflection of the rest of the letter is her devotion to Jesus. She's devoted to him as a bride. She wants to be the bride of his heart. And she kind of speaks into the same desire that she knows is in the heart of Madame Angus, and kind of invites her to share the same with her, that Jesus is actually that adorable, that lovable, that if you give your heart to loving him, it's actually the fulfillment of everything in your life. It's filled with meaning. This is a hard thing. People on the whole, many very devout Catholics, one of the things they wrestle with is kind of the question, is it really real? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but in the back there's kind of a little bit of a doubt that if I really give everything to him, if I really spend my life and let him be the center of everything, will I really be happy? Well, Elisabeth in this letter, she's pretty much saying, yes, you will be. This is what I'm experiencing. I found unimaginable happiness by saying yes to him. Isn't this wonderful? You can do the same thing. Say yes to him. Let him be the center of your heart, and he makes all things new.
What else can we glean from this particular letter?
There's a kind of a concluding thought. They used to go on family trips into La Jura, which is a mountainous region of France that kind of gets close to the Alps. It's very, very beautiful. And I think also down into the Pyrenees, too, they went together.
As for me, I will never go to your beautiful mountains again, but I will follow you there in soul and heart, asking him who is our rendezvous to draw us to those other mountains, those divine summits that are so far from earth they nearly touch heaven. I remain wholly united with you there beneath the rays of the sun of love.
The image then, both of them share a love of the mountains. So Elisabeth, she found the mountains exhilarating, and so did her friends. And maybe a little wistfully, I won't be able to go to those beautiful mountains again. I'm in Carmel. I've made my decision, and sometimes that decision is to renounce really beautiful things. But she hasn't renounced this friend whom she loves, and she calls her friend to even more beautiful mountains. The mountains of the heart, the mountains of God's love, of his grace, the summit of the perfection of the Christian life, which consists in charity, friendship, love of God. She's inviting Madame Angles to climb these mountains with her. As you strive for the perfection of love in your life, as you strive to take away everything that's an obstacle to love in your life and live solely for God, the love of God, the sun of love, this bright, shining reality, kind of illumines the whole soul. And she says they nearly touch heaven. As we strive to enter into deep prayer, as we strive to order our lives towards love, to remove the obstacles of love in our life, it's an ascending motion. It makes us vulnerable to the things of heaven. It's a way you live heaven here on earth. She's already said, I have my heaven. It's a heaven by faith in the God who has loved me to the end, Christ crucified. She says this in another letter. Here she's saying that this heaven, the experience of it that she started out a letter with, this place where we are awaited by love, this place where there is infinite love ready to embrace us, isn't something that we wait for at the end of our lives or after this life. It's something that's breaking in on us right now. If we strive to be perfect in our love for God through prayer and through practicing our love for one another, through discipline in the spiritual life, all the disciplines, fasting and praying and doing the corporal and spiritual works of mercy for each other, going to Mass and going to confession as we need to. When we strive to do these things, when we make ourselves especially vulnerable to our spouse or to our children and really listen to what's going on in their hearts, as we do these things, where it's like we're mountain climbing, as we ascend this mountain of love, we expose ourselves to the sun of love, the bright, warm light of God that wants to shine on us. And Elisabeth is inviting Madame Angles into this sunshine of God's love.
It's quite compelling, isn't it, Anthony, that even in her, what seems to be more isolated situation in the Carmel, she's experiencing a profound sense of community, of a much greater assembly of those who are sharing and interceding and praying for and suffering with. It's almost as though she goes into the Carmel, what would appear to be, again, in a more isolated situation, and she's seeing something much, and experiencing something much, much bigger.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought. The reality of God's love is so rich and beautiful. We sometimes let those words fall off our lips a little bit thoughtlessly. We lose sight of the truth, the reality they are for us. And when we claim that reality, when we say yes to this in faith, there's a confidence that carries us up, a kind of courage that can help us advance forward in life. When we forget those words, when we lose sight of what's truly essential in life, we make ourselves vulnerable to all kinds of pettiness and vulnerable to losing our way so often. Elisabeth is inviting us, just as you said, she's inviting us to behold a deeper, richer reality and to root our existence on it, to make that the ground that we stand our whole being on. It's a very powerful thought.
It all looks like love, doesn't it? And when I mean by that, it's not just a cheery type of 60s imagery you might come up in your mind of hearts and flowers, but it's a love that engages in relationship with others, making yourself present to others, and whether it's an encouragement or to be able to just be present in suffering. We can be that in that communion of saints, an extension of that for those even for who she's writing to. Even though she's extending that love, that communion of the saints to others. And we can do that too, can't we?
Yes, we can. And that's the beauty of our faith. It makes possible a deeper kind of commitment, precisely because we believe in love and we're able to draw from a love that is more than this world. We are capable also of commitments that are stronger and greater than this world. She talks in here about being vowed to the Lord. Her spousal love and a vowed love, a faithful love, is what that speaks to. So this isn't just sentimentalism and romanticism. She's talking about giving a whole gift of herself. And she has confidence to give that gift. She has confidence to speak this way because the love, the strength isn't her own. In fact, what we read earlier, she quotes Saint Therese of Lisieux, "Be thou my sanctity." That comes right out of the act of oblation. She wants to be holy, and Christian holiness consists in charity, friendship, love of God. To be holy means to be set apart. And how are we set apart? By the charity, friendship, love of God. Therese of Lisieux, in her great act of oblation to merciful love, says, I want to be a saint. Be my sanctity. In other words, I want to be set apart by love, by the perfection of your love. Become that in me. Let this be in me. Let your reality, your holiness, your love that sets you apart, O God, be the reality of my heart. Elisabeth claims that as her own in this letter. And so it's a place to stand our existence, a place to root ourselves that raises us up above the world and transforms everything we do. We see it in a new light. We're no longer victims of the circumstances of the moment. They don't get to make what's going on right here, right now, this person dissing me or not being recognized. These things don't get to make an absolute claim over my life because they're not what's ultimately real. What is ultimately real is that God is setting me apart with his own love. He's making me holy with his own holiness. We can root our faith in that.
The experience of heaven is now.
Elisabeth challenged us and invited us to taste heaven. I think it's a beautiful thing for us to turn our hearts towards heaven and to think about this love that awaits us. The love of heaven isn't something so remote from us. She writes this letter with a conviction, something breaking in on us right now, something that awaits us, that is awaiting us, and we're not alone, and we can live our lives immersed in this if we will choose to believe.
You've been listening to Beginning to Pray with Dr. Anthony Lilles. We'd like to take this moment, too, to thank Miriam Gutierrez, who provided the voice for St. Elisabeth of the Trinity. To hear and or to download this conversation, along with hundreds of other spiritual formation programs, visit discerninghearts.com. This has been a production of Discerning Hearts. I'm your host, Chris McGregor. We hope that if this has been helpful for you, that you will first pray for our mission. And if you feel us worthy, consider a charitable donation, which is fully tax deductible, to help support our efforts. But most of all, we hope that you will tell a friend about discerninghearts.com and join us next time for Beginning to Pray with Dr. Anthony Lilles.